You know the feeling. We've all been there. You build this amazing automation, you set it live, and then boom, a little red failed notification pops up. It can feel like total chaos. But here's the thing. Every failed workflow is just a puzzle, one that's waiting for you to solve it. So in this explainer, we're going to flip that script. We're going from chaos to complete control by mastering the art of n8n debugging. So here's our game plan. We're going to start with the basics. Why do workflows break in the first place? Then we'll open up our debugging toolkit and really see what's inside. We'll put it to the test right away, first by fixing a really obvious error, and then we'll tackle something much trickier, the silent failure. And to wrap things up, we're going to shift our thinking from just fixing problems to actually preventing them, learning how to build automations that are rock solid from the get-go. Okay, first things first, let's get one thing straight. A workflow that fails is not a sign that you did something wrong. It's just part of the game. It's an inevitable, totally normal part of building any kind of automation. So the key isn't to try and avoid failures completely, but to get really good at understanding what's at the root of the problem. So when one of your executions just grinds to a halt, what's really going on under the hood? Well, it almost always comes down to just one of a handful of common issues. And you know what? The causes are usually way simpler than you'd think. They pretty much fall into two big buckets. Either it's an issue inside your workflow, like you just set up a node wrong, or it's something totally outside your control, like a service you're trying to connect to is just down for a minute. But honestly, the most common culprit by a long shot is the data itself. It's missing a crucial piece of info your workflow is counting on. When any of those things happen, the default behavior is a hard stop. The whole process just halts, and the execution gets flagged with that failed status. We call this a hard fail. It's loud, it's obvious, it's a clear signal that something needs your attention. But, and this is a big but, it's not the only way things can go wrong. See, the hard fail is like a blaring alarm. It stops everything and screams, hey, there's a problem over here. But the silent fail? Oh, the silent fail is way sneakier. The workflow will actually tell you it succeeded. It runs all the way to the end. But the whole reason you built the thing in the first place, your desired outcome, yeah, that never happened. And these are the ones that can really, really trip you up. So how do we fight back against both of these? Well, it's time to open up our debugging toolkit. I want you to think of these features as your own personal detective's kit for finding the culprit, no matter what kind of failure you're looking at. First up is Debug in Editor, and this is your absolute go-to for hard fails. With just one click, it grabs the exact data from the real world that caused the crash and slaps it right onto your canvas. This is amazing because it lets you see the problem firsthand and test your fix with the actual data that broke everything. Okay, great. So you found the bug and you fixed it. But what about all those executions that already failed? Are you going to run them all again by hand? No way. The retry feature is a lifesaver here. You can reprocess a whole batch of failed runs at once, and it cleverly starts them right from the node that broke, which saves you a ton of time and resources. Ever push a fix that, whoops, actually made things 1,000 times worse? Yeah, we've all been there. That's what version history is for. It's your ultimate safety net. Every single time you hit save, it creates a snapshot. So if a change you made introduces a new bug, you can just instantly rewind the entire workflow back to a version that was working perfectly. It's a real undo button for your entire automation. Okay, let's boil this all down. If you remember one thing from this section, make it this. The most important decision you'll make is right here. If the status is failed, you use Debug in Editor. If the status has success, but the result is wrong, you use Copy to Editor. Getting that one distinction right in your head, that is half the battle, right there. All right, theory time is over. Let's get our hands dirty and actually put this toolkit into practice. We're going to start with a step-by-step walkthrough of a very common, very clear error. You've probably seen this scary-looking error message before, right? Error cannot read properties of undefined. All this is really is a fancy way of saying a node was expecting a piece of data. In this example, it was an ID from a webhook, and it just wasn't there. It came up empty-handed. The node tried to read something from nothing, and of course, the whole workflow just crashed. So fixing this is like a simple three-step dance. First, we pin that bad data using Debug in Editor so we can see exactly what we're dealing with. Second, we make our workflow a whole lot smarter. We add some logic to check for an ID. But if that's missing, we tell it to look for an email as a backup. And finally, we plan for the worst-case scenario. If neither one is there, we tell the workflow to fail on purpose with a clear error message. This makes our automation so much more robust. Okay, we just slayed the easy dragon. Now it's time for the real boss battle. Solving a silent failure. This is that tricky kind of problem where the workflow tells you it succeeded, but nothing actually happened. And this quote really gets to the heart of the problem. A workflow can run without failing, but also without actually succeeding. It's like it might look up a user, find no one, and then just stop. No error message, no output, nothing. From the system's point of view, everything's fine. But from your perspective, the automation totally failed. And this is why that rule we talked about is so critical. Because the workflow has a success status, the debug and editor option won't even be available. The system sees success, so it won't give you the option. Instead, you have to use copy to editor to manually load that execution's data onto your canvas so you can start investigating what went wrong. The whole strategy here is to turn this ghost into something we can actually see. We're going to force this silent failure to become a loud, obvious hard fail. So first, we tweak the lookup node so it always outputs something, even if it's just an empty item. Second, right after that, we add a simple check. Hey, did that output actually contain any data? And third, if that output is empty, we use a stop and throw error node. Now, instead of just ghosting us, the workflow will create a clear, loud error that we can actually see and handle. Okay, now that we've fixed both kinds of failures, let's take this one step further. Because the ultimate goal isn't just to get really good at putting out fires. It's to build automations that are so resilient they can actually prevent the fires from starting in the first place. And this really all boils down to a total shift in mindset. Instead of building for the perfect, happy path, you have to build defensively. You start with the assumption that data will be missing. You use conditional logic to handle all kinds of unexpected inputs. And maybe most importantly, you force your workflow to be loud about its failures, turning those sneaky, silent issues into explicit errors you just can't miss. Which leaves us with this final thought. As you go back to your own workflows, I want you to ask yourself this one question. Is your automation just working for that perfect, happy path scenario? Or have you built it to be truly resilient, to be as much as you possibly can unbreakable? Because that right there is the difference between a good automation and a great one.